Take it away.
Hey guys, welcome to the Delta Flyers. I am your host, Garrett Wang, and with me is my co-host, Robert McNeill.
We just wanted to let you know that as we got into this very first pilot episode, Caretaker, we realized there's so much to talk about. It's a supersized pilot episode of the Delta Flyers. We hope you enjoy it.
We'll be watching all the Voyager episodes, starting from number 1, Caretaker, the pilot episode, all the way to the very end, and discussing our views about each episode, talking about insights that only we would have because we were there.
I don't remember much of anything at all, so you're going to have to remind me. I don't understand why I have no memory function in my brain. This is going to be great for me because you're going to remind me of things, and then I'm going to sit back, I'm going to watch these episodes, and I need this kind of practice for me to remember anything. Wait, what's your name again?
Henry Kim is the character that I played.
Henry.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yes, good old Henry. So just to give you guys a bit about the format of this show, we will be providing this podcast in all the standard areas that you can get your podcasts from, such as iTunes and Spotify. But we will also have a second version, which we will be adding extra bonus material and extra interviews and other fun things that will be available through our Patreon page. So please check out Patreon and the Delta Flyers there to subscribe and get in on the inside info. Anything to add to that, Mr. McNeill?
No, I don't think so. We're going to have some cool t-shirts and mugs and hats and underpants, maybe some underpants.
You know, we could put that in the merch store. Underwear.
Tidy whities with the logo on it.
Tidy whities would be good. Maybe some boxers, right? For those that want to kind of,
Yeah, whatever you like.
Okay, that sounds good.
No, I think it's gonna be fun. We're gonna, the podcast, the short podcast will be the free one out to everybody on those sites, as you said. That'll be our recap. It'll just focus really on the episode. But we've got some ideas for having fun with this, playing around with things like winners and losers on each episode, and maybe scenes we'd like to do over. We may give you a little sample of how we might do things over, and if we had a second chance, and in our wisdom of our old age here.
Yep, and also fan reviews. We'll be reading some of those and discussing those. So for those of you that are with us on Patreon, we are about to play a little game of What Do We Remember?
What do we remember? The pilot. Go.
Oh, I remember that we went on location to many different locations.
I thought when we did the pilot, I do remember that. I don't remember much, Garrett, so low expectations. But
okay,
I do remember that we went a lot of locations, and I thought that was how we were going to make the whole show, and that was not true. We never went out after that. I mean, almost never. We maybe once a season we'd get off the lot and go out. Otherwise, we were on the stages. I do remember the way I remember the pilot. It was a deep dive into a character named Tom Paris, who was very misunderstood, and Janeway knew he was really a hero deep down. Yeah, that's how I remember the whole pilot. It was mostly really focused on Tom, I think.
Right. So Janeway's secret nickname for you was the Savior, maybe? I think that's kind of what she was thinking of whenever she looked at you.
But I'm honest, I don't remember. I remember she got me out of a prison because I shot the scene in Griffith Park in the old zoo. We filmed the prison in like zoo cages from the old 1920s zoo in LA.
You just answered one of my questions I had written down. I was like, where was this location with you and Janeway? Perfect. It was at the zoo.
I remember that. That was at the zoo. I remember that we shot a couple of days with a different captain. I do remember that.
And do you know that only you and we're the only two series regulars that filmed with that original captain.
With Jean-Vive Bugeaud. Really?
Yeah. Just us, man. Nobody else. It's funny because I tell the story at conventions of how it was with Geneviève Bujold for the first time, working with her and what was going on. And literally that exact same story was told by Tim Russ at another convention, because he was sitting he was sitting in my panel, my Q&A, and he heard me say it. So he repeats the story as if he was there firsthand, but he was not there. It was just Paris and Kim. That's it. Just the two of us.
She was supposed to have an inspiring speech, sort of walk around or something, and then she was supposed to, like, swashbuckling adventure, like, engage. Anyway, that's how I imagined it was going to be.
Yeah.
When we got to that scene, what I do remember is that she gave this speech almost at a whisper. I could barely hear what she was saying.
Yes.
And then she sat down and closed her eyes and said, engage. Like,
that's right.
Right?
She whispered it like it was a French art house film. She would engage.
And what's amazing is Geneviève Bujold is a wonderful actress.
Great actress.
Really is a fabulously talented actress.
Nominated for Academy Award on Anne of a Thousand Days. So very talented French-Canadian actress.
Yeah, I don't mean to talk crap about anybody, but I think she was just, I don't know, didn't know how to kind of dive into that heightened sort of swashbuckling adventurer type tone that I think it was how I imagined the Captain. I don't know why, maybe because Patrick Stewart had sort of had that kind of approach in the previous series, and I don't know.
And Kirk as well too. Kirk is very much there and being the confident captain. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that's why we were so shocked by her line delivery. Just to recount that story, that entire first day, she filmed 2 days, and the second day, after half a day was done, is when she quit. So when we were filming that scene on the bridge, in between all of our takes, she was running off stage. She wouldn't socialize with anybody. She was gone. Okay. And then towards the end of the day, I felt like, you know what, I'm going to stop her. I'm going to intercept her. And I remember kind of blocking her pathway. And I said, hi. I said, how are things going? And I said it with the most open heart possible, kind of a tone of voice. And she looked at me and she kind of sized me up, and I could just see her wheels were turning, thinking, should I talk to this kid or not? And then I think she made the decision, like, well, I haven't said any word to anybody, so might as well. Mm. And she looks at me and she said, in her French Canadian accent, she said, I feel as if I cannot trust anybody. And I said, what? You can't trust anybody? Oh. Yes. When I first agreed to take the role of Janeway, I tell the producers that I want to have no nonsense with my hair. I want my hair to be down. I don't want it up. I don't want a lot of makeup. I want her to be captain first and a woman second. And literally, she was very, set about, this is what I would do. I have a very clear picture of how I will be Captain Janeway. Mm-hmm. And then she said that the producers agreed. She goes, they agreed with me, but then before we start filming, they change everything. And so she felt that she was kind of given a certain, leeway to do what she needed to do, prepare herself to be Captain Janeway. And then it was taken away. It was sort of like, sorry, you can't do all those things that we agreed to. Now we're going to try to put a wig on you. Now we're going to, I think she won that battle, because if you see the footage of her, and it's out there, her hair is down. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, after all the years you see Janeway with Kate Mulgrew, the hair's up in the crazy tight matronly grandma bun. And then it kind of does something else. By season 4, it's down and natural, the way Geneviève Bujold requested it from day one. Right. So it was sort of like, oh, wow. And I think it was difficult for everybody, because I just remember watching the camera operator, the boom operator, when Geneviève said, engage. They were just shocked. They were just going, oh my God, we can't even hear her, Yeah. We shut down production for, was it 3 weeks, Robbie, after that, when they said we're looking for... It
seemed like a while they were looking. We stopped production completely. Or no, we filmed a few more days of scenes that she wasn't in. I think the Maquis scenes, right, or something. And
right. And then we shut it down because they had to find another Janeway, right? Yeah. The rumor on the street was, if they couldn't find, and it was a very exhaustive search just to find her. So the rumor was, since they've already seen everybody in their 40s and 50s for Janeway, if they couldn't find a woman to replace her, they were then going to start looking for men. So Janeway would be a guy. Then the further rumor was, if that happens, one of the existing male characters of series regulars on Voyager,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yes, will be recast.
I know.
Recast. And so I'm looking at Robbie like, okay, he was freaking on Masters of the Universe. They're not going to recast him. That's not going to happen. I mean, his resume is long. So I kept thinking, in my head, that since Dustin Hoffman played Tootsie and he was able to play a woman, I definitely
try it.
I'm going to try it, man.
I could have pulled it off. I believe in you, Garrett. I think I'll
be Harrietta Kim. I could do that. I'll shave my legs for this.
Harrietta.
So. Harrietta. That would have been a whole different dynamic. Harrietta and Tom, right? You would have been my girlfriend, my boyfriend. If I
it would have been a whole different thing.
Whole different thing.
All right. Well, I think that's good for what we remember, because I'm pretty much out of memories.
Did you have an accident as a teenager on a BMX bike? Did you take a jump and hit your head so hard?
I like to think of it like I'm just living in the moment, Garrett. Very, very present. And I let it go once it's happened. I just let it go.
You just let it go. Okay. All right.
One or the other.
I like that.
But I think we should go watch this episode so that
Let's go watch it.
Let's go watch this episode. We'll watch the pilot episode, Caretaker. Garrett and I are going to do that separately. We're going to make a few notes and see what we remember, and we'll come back and join you shortly.
For what?
There's not enough time. Not enough time.
That's what Beltran did all the time. Oh my God, Neelix saved us. I didn't remember Neelix saved us. I still have a half hour of this. I've already watched an hour, and there's another half hour. I didn't know we made an hour and a half pilot. It's so long. It's a blob? I didn't remember a blob. I got a field commission. Ooh, 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 ooh. I think I'm gonna cry.
You were in this cup.
He's very sensitive, that Tom.
I'm only sorry your father walked off.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Delta Flyers. We are now back from rewatching the pilot episode.
Wow.
Do you have synapses firing?
So many things to say about rewatching that. I forget things like Neelix had a super cool coat that he wore, like that when he was in his little junk ship or whatever, and he had that cool coat. And we'll get there in the recap, but that was a cool coat. Why didn't he just stay in that cool coat? He looked like a badass. That was awesome. He looked like he had an edge to him,
Yeah.
And he saved us. He's out on the planet. He grabbed the gun, and oh man, there's so much that I didn't remember. So, okay.
That's a good thing.
I learned a lot from that recap.
All right. Just to start it off, I kind of wanted to revisit a little bit. I know in our prior sort of intro episode, part 1 and 2, about who we are, we talked about a lot, but I just wanted to be a little bit more precise about the casting process that I went through as Kim, because it was really just crazy. And I just want to share this with the fans out there who haven't heard this. When I initially got the call for that, I had just finished going to the callback audition for a film by a producer named Rich Wilkes. And it was a true story of the writer's experience, collegiate experience at University of California in Santa Cruz. And so I was one of the roommates, right? And the actual callback audition was me singing or lip syncing this punk rock song called Now We Are 21. It was insane because I started out lip syncing. I didn't know
you had musical tendencies, Garrett.
I have none.
You should have been. You should have done, instead of the clarinet on Voyager, you should have been like a punk rock musician.
That would have been cool, right?
Yeah, that would have been.
That would have been cool. But I remember going from that final callback audition where I'm screaming the lyrics and it's just at the end I'm throwing like the chair around so it looks like somebody's getting killed or sounds like somebody's getting killed. And I remember opening up the door and the entire room it's probably over 100 actors waiting to go in on Tide and Colgate, and they look out. They're just looking at me wide-eyed, like, what the hell happened? And I walk past, I go, I think I got the role. And what happened was they were filming, and after I threw the last chair against the wall, and the last refrain of that song was my character singing 21, and I made this 21. Originally I was gonna go 21, but in the audition I went 21, and I flipped off the producer and the director and everybody. And when that was done, the director comes up and he bear hugs me, and he goes, I love you, man. And at that point I thought, I think I have that role. And I had to run straight from there to Paramount Studios. And as I'm at Paramount, right, about to audition for Nan Dutton, I get a page. Remember the pagers we had back in the 90s? So I answer my page and I call my agent, and he's like, guess what? You booked the film. And I said, yeah, I think I already know that, because the director was bear hugging me at the end. And right when I'm saying that, the director, Rich Wilkes, walked past the phone booth on Paramount Studio lot with Brannon Braga. So I run out. I go, Rich, thanks for casting me. And he's like, hey, Garrett, what are you doing here? I said, what are you doing here? He says, oh, I'm just here with my buddy who went to UC Santa Cruz with me, Brannon Braga. Oh. And he's giving me a tour of the Voyager set. And I said, oh, that's pretty funny, because I'm actually auditioning for the Voyager series. And then Brannon, in his sort of cryptic way, looks at me and he says, hope to see you in the second round. Is all he said, very kind of subtly. And then they walked away. And now years later, I found out that Rich Wilkes turned to Brannon and he says, don't you dare steal my effing actor from me, from underneath me, okay? And then that's exactly what ended up happening, right? Because of why? Because when Geneviève Bujold quit, because after we were filming the pilot, we were supposed to have a break before we filmed the next episode. That break was when I was going to film this movie in Santa Cruz, and it got all trashed because of the whole
the captain and everything,
the debacle. So I walk. He's like, good luck on the audition. I walk into Nan Dutton's office. I walk in to see this ashtray the size of like a Frisbee, and it's just a mound of cigarettes, and she's just puffing away. And she goes, oh yeah, sit down. And as we do the audition, she stops me after 2 lines. She goes, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm looking at you don't have it memorized? I said, well, no, I'm still on book. It's my first audition. I thought maybe it's okay to be on book. Well, what made you think that? I said, well, I literally just got back from a callback audition I drove over here very quickly, and now I'm here auditioning for this. And I booked the role. I booked the film. She goes, oh, what's the film called? And I named the film. She goes, never heard of it. I mean, she was really just abrupt with me. And so she looked at me and she says, you know what? Get out of my office. Get out of my office. Go look at the lines until you know them, and then come back. And just come back at that point. And I said, are you serious? She goes, yeah, get out. And so I walked out. And I looked at the casting director's assistant, Libby. And I said, Libby Goldstein. I said, Libby, I think Nan Dutton hates my guts. And she goes, what happened? I said, she kicked me out. She goes, she kicked you out? And I explained to her the whole thing. And she says, and then what did she say? I said, and then she tells me to go memorize the lines and then come back later. She goes, oh, she told you to come back? I said, yeah. Oh, that means she loves you. And I go, what? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And she says, okay. I looked at her and I said, honestly, I've never, ever had anyone sort of like, treat me like that in terms of talking to me so abruptly and frankly, rudely. I think I need some time and especially since I booked that other role, I was prepared for that. I'd like to prepare for this a little bit better. Can you ask her to reschedule me? And her eyes opened up and she says, you want me to do what? I said, I want you to see if I can be rescheduled. And she says, I don't think I can do that. I said, what do you mean? Because even her assistants were kind of afraid of her, right? And she says, well, if I do this, Garrett, you don't know what could happen. I said, well, what do you want me to do? She says, I need you to leave the building. So the casting assistant, Libby, told me to leave the building, go around the corner to the alley and hide behind the dumpster and read my lines in the meantime if I wasn't going to get the chance to be rescheduled. So about 10 minutes later, Libby comes into the alley and finds me. And she goes, I can't believe it. Nan, this is the first time she's done this in all the years I've worked for her. She's going to reschedule you. I
Wow.
cannot believe it. So I got to come back and do it again. One of the scenes that I had to read was from the stairwell of the pilot, where Harry and B'Elanna are trying to get out of the old Compton underground, and they've been diseased. They have the disease from the caretaker, and they're very weak, right? And so there's a big speech that I can't believe it. My very first mission, and I'm going to die. That's the Harry Kim speech. So I'm actually, before my 5th audition in front of network, I'm talking with Nan, and we're going over this scene, and she cuts me short, and she says, "What is it with you damn actors?" And I said, "What now?" And she says, "You're supposed to be dying in this scene. You're supposed to be experiencing pain. Do you understand what that means? Pain?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." "I don't think you do. I think you need to come over here." So I walked around her desk. She goes, "Roll up your sleeve." So I rolled up my sleeve, and she says, "Give me your arm." I go, "Okay." And then she grabs my forearm and starts twisting it in opposite directions. And that sort of like that, what we would, as Americans, call an Indian burn or whatever we would say. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm going, ow. And she said, "Okay, now do the audition while I'm doing this." And so I'm going, I can't believe that on my very first mission, I'm going to die. And so I'm sitting there in pain, literally. Wow. And she goes, "And that's how you do pain." And so I was sitting there in pain.
She must have really liked you, honestly, to invest that kind of time. And, it's very unusual for them to get involved in that
big time.
way. Yeah.
Big time. So I have all the thanks in the world to give to Nan Dutton for literally putting me through the ringer, and getting me to that point where I was able to get this role. And the crazy thing, I was seeing every Asian person on the planet. I saw Short Round walking out of the building from Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, right? And also Goonies, Data. He was Data in Goonies. I saw him walking out, and I was like, "It's Short Round. He's auditioning for Ensign Kim." And Robbie, I saw the actor. His name is Jonathan K. Kwan. I saw the actor at a convention about a year ago, and we were talking. He's like, "Wait a minute, you're the one that booked the Voyager role?" So
That's
he still
funny.
remembers that. Yeah.
Wow.
He still remembers that. And then Megan said, "You guys should do a show together about 2 Asian actors that have been, big in the past, and now you're life." And I thought, this could be funny, right? Wow. But that audition process was just is so surreal, for me. And I just remember the day that I got the call that I booked the role. They was like, my agent was very, very, very low key, and he says, "Guess what? You booked it." I go, "What? I booked the role?" He's like, "Yep." I said, "So are you joking with me?" "No. Why would I be?" He was like Stephen Wright, the comedian that has no emotion. He goes, "Why would I be joking? Why would I be joking?" I said, "Because you don't sound like you're excited." He goes, "I'm very excited for you." And then I was like, "Okay." And he says, "You need to get down to Paramount Studios, and they need a fitting with you today." And I was filming All American Girl, Margaret Cho's sitcom that lasted for 1 season. I was the guest star for that week. And so I hauled ass from Warner Brothers over the hill to get to Paramount during rush hour. And as I'm driving in to the Paramount guard shack, the guard and I had made friends. Remember, I've been there 6 times for all these auditions. Sure. So this guard and I were friends, and we had a bet going. We whoever the winner was owed the other guy a 24 case of beer. And the bet was, I said, "I'm not getting this role," and he said, "You're gonna get it, and you're gonna owe me a lot of beer." And I was like, "Okay." So I drove up, and he's there, and he goes, "You got it, didn't you?" I said, "Yes, I owe you beer." And he said, I said, "Get it for him?" I did. I did. I said, and I said to him, "I'm late. I'm really, really late because I'm supposed to be here like 20 minutes ago, and I came from the valley. Where do I park?" He says, "In the blue tank, anywhere in the blue tank." And so I drive down there, and I'm cruising around. I'm actually speeding around the parking lot. And I come around this one bend, and this guy in a suit walks between 2 cars right in front of my car. So I slam on my brakes, and I'm like, and when you almost have an accident, your heart is beating 1,000 miles a minute. And I lock eyes with this dude in the suit, and it's Harrison Ford. Okay. And I look at him, and I go, "Oh my God, I almost killed Han Solo, Indiana Jones. I would have been hated by nerds everywhere. Like, I would have been like this pariah." And I kept thinking, holy crap. And I remember reading the Variety paper, our Hollywood sort of trade paper the next day. And on the front page was a photo. It says Harrison Ford at Paramount Studios for the Clear and Present Danger screening. So he was there for that job,
Wow.
Yes. So the Tom Clancy novel, right? So he was there for that, wearing that same suit that I almost maimed him in, right? So he could have been a cripple because of me. And there, lo and behold, I made it.
You had a lot of adventures just getting to starting shooting this series.
Exactly. I did.
You barely survived.
All right. So on that note,
let's start talking about the episode.
Let's start talking about the ep. I'm sorry. I just wanted to fill everyone in. Just get
that's good.
Better now than later. Talk about Harrison Ford later, right? Okay. So as we start up, we see the opening credits. We see the crawl, sort of like in a la Star Wars. The crawl. Yeah,
I thought I'd totally forgotten about that.
You didn't remember that?
I didn't remember the crawl. I do remember once I saw it. I flashed back to sitting in that big Paramount theater, the movie theater, when we had the screening. And I remember when that crawl came up at the screening, I was like, I had flashes of Star Wars, and it felt epic. It felt like iconic.
Yeah.
And the music and everything, because we hadn't seen the pilot. We'd been shooting for a few months.
That's right.
Saw anything. And the first time that I remember seeing it was in that theater screening.
What people don't realize is that typically we shoot one episode in 7 days. Every now and then it would take 8 days to film an episode. And because this was a two-parter, it should have taken 14 days.
Yeah. By the way, I forgot it was a two-parter. I literally we got to like an hour, and I paused it for a second, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe there's another half hour." Like I can't.
Oh my
god, we made an hour and a half pilot. I didn't remember that. Didn't remember.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So typically, if it would take 7 days to film one, you would think that it would take 14 days to film this one. But in reality, it was a 31-day shoot. And, which they spent extra time, primarily because we went on so many different locations. And you referred to earlier how you had thought that this is how it's always going to be. But in reality, as we've started filming the regular episodes, we had a lot of bottle shows. We stayed on the ship. We didn't go anywhere, right? And part of the reason why when people ask me, what is your favorite episode, I say it's a tie between Timeless, the 100th episode, and Caretaker. And specifically Caretaker, the pilot episode, because of all the locations we went on, it felt like this grand,
like a movie
journey. Oh, like a movie. We were filming this awesome epic feature, and we were all over the place. And so that to me was one of the reasons why I loved filming the pilot episode.
Yeah, the pilot was fun.
Yeah. Do you remember this? Both Tom Paris and Harry Kim were scheduled 30 of the 31 shoot days.
I didn't remember that, but I do remember that I worked a lot of days, and other people, I think Bob Picardo came in like week 3 or 4 of the shoot or something.
Bob Picardo worked, I think, 2 days, maybe.
Yeah, I think he worked 2 days.
Janeway, do you know how many days she worked? Here's a little bit of trivia. Okay, 16 of the 31.
Wow.
Yeah, we worked more than Janeway did, right? Which is crazy.
Scattered around in so many scenes. We started the very first day of filming that pilot was, I think, on the DS9 set. Wasn't the Quarks Bar the first scene we did?
Quarks Bar was the first scene. Oh no, I think it was. If it wasn't Quarks Bar, it was in the mess hall when you're ordering tomato soup. Again, back to the whole 16 days only for Janeway. That's nuts because on the call sheet, she was number 1. And the call sheet, for those of you that don't know Hollywood jargon, is basically sort of it shows you who's working the next day, what scenes that you're filming, and it shows crew lists, and everyone that's part of the production is listed on this call sheet. And it shows you what time you're supposed to be there. And we were given numbers from day one according to how often they thought we would work. So number 1 was Janeway. Robbie, number 2 was?
It was me. I was number 2.
Robbie was number 2 because the rumor was they were going to make you kind of like Janeway's boy toy or something. Something was going to happen there. I thought that it was
initially there was. I think one of the descriptions casting that pilot was a Han Solo type character that they wanted that sort of. I think they looked at older actors.
Okay.
I think they looked at whatever. I think the intention was possibly that Janeway and Paris would be a romantic couple, or combative all the time or something.
Right.
Moonlighting, something like that. So
Yep.
Paris was number 2. Who was number 3? I don't remember.
I know them all, so I'm quizzing you. Who do you think 3 was?
I would say Chakotay.
Correct. Who's 4?
Tuvok.
Correct. Good. Who's
Whoa.
5?
Roxanne.
No.
You were 5?
Yes.
Nice.
I was right in the middle, buddy. I'm 5. I can't believe you just.
Who was 6?
I'm not going to be too hurt. Who you just named, who wasn't 5?
Roxanne.
Yes, Roxanne was 6. Number 7?
Neelix?
Correct. Number 8?
Bob? Doctor?
Nope.
Yes.
Cass. Number 9?
Doctor. Bob.
The Doctor, yeah.
Wow.
Because literally Bob Picardo was supposed to be the least used of the entire show.
Yeah, he was
He was
supposed
going to come in one day at most each episode, right? But to his credit, to his talent, he really put in his own flair or his own style. Because let's think about this. What is he? The emergency medical hologram. He's a computer program, so there really shouldn't be any reaction to anything or this and that. You definitely see reaction to him, which
he had an attitude for sure.
He had an attitude already right from the beginning.
Well, let's keep going in order.
Yeah.
We could be here for a week if we
we could.
we could talk about this. We could talk about this for 31 days. The same time, the length that it took us to film it, we could keep talking for 31 days.
Okay, so the crawl. Let's get back to the show. So the crawl, we find out that there's this group called the Maquis. They're Federation colonists. They're not happy with the treaty with the Kardashians. The Cardassians. Yeah, I got it. It's so funny because Cardassians have been around way before Kardashians became,
a thing.
Yeah, a thing. I guess it just takes a sex tape, and then now that's everything, right? So yes, the Cardassians, the Federation colonists were not happy with the treaty with Cardassia.
By the way, I forgot about that too. I forgot why.
You didn't know what that was?
Okay. I totally forgot.
Yep.
The Maquis were colonists who didn't agree with the treaty and and felt like Starfleet wasn't. I didn't remember their motivation, which I think, and that's another thing. I think the fact that I forgot that to me says that I think we dropped that in the story. I was reminded of that in watching the pilot, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer that we didn't explore that more. Like, just that it seemed like we got it. We put everybody together and we got along pretty quickly, and we just sort of forgot about the fact that half our crew.
Well, they were outlaws, right? They were outlaws from the Federation, and in fact, Paris had spent time with the Maquis because there's that tension between Paris and not Tuvok, but Chakotay. So we have that. So after the crawl, we see that Chakotay is piloting his Maquis ship.
By the way, let me talk about that Maquis ship for a minute. Here's one thing I noticed. The camera was shaking and there was sparks and everything, and none of the actors were moving. None of the actors were doing the old classic. And it reminded me that and I forget the director's name, but someone gave us a shaking tape. Because she said she came into episode like 3 or
Kim
something.
Kim Friedman,
and she said, I looked at some episodes cuts, and you guys haven't been shaking, and you need to learn how to shake. And I got really offended. Some of us got offended, like, how dare you come in here? We've been doing this for a month or two, and now you're telling us. Well, when I looked at the Maquis ship, she was right.
Yeah, she's right.
It's just sitting there, and Robert, and like nobody told the actors, you got to do this. You got to do. So,
but to the credit of the producers, which would be Berman and Piller and Taylor, they were so busy with everything. So many things were happening at that time, like the end of TNG, the beginning of our show, the movie they were filming, so that it's almost like they weren't ready to film Voyager because they didn't give us that tutorial. And when we got that package from Kim Friedman, that was on her own. That was her saying, I'm going to go ahead and send this to all the actors. Yeah. So all 9 of us received this package in the mail, and we're reading it. And literally, just like Robbie said, it says, "Hi, my name is Friedman. I will be the director of the first episode when you come back from your pilot break. And I have directed many episodes of Deep Space Nine. And although you guys all did an excellent job as actors, none of you know how to shake correctly.
Yeah.
Not a single one of you. And she's, I've included scenes of shaking from DS9 where all the DS9 actors are shaking properly.
Yeah.
And then I have scenes, and she showed us scenes from Voyager where you guys aren't doing anything correctly.
Yeah.
So then she went on, and so you may have took offense to it. I laughed, and I actually said, okay, because after that, she asked us to practice this. She's like, okay, you need to, she told us the technique. She said, you must shake from your center and then allow your extremities to follow. So she says, please practice this in the mirror at home. And I was again laughing at that part. And then she says, this is the best part. At the very end of this letter, she says, if after practicing in the mirror, you still cannot get the hang of it, please feel free to go knock on any Deep Space Nine actor's trailer door and ask for a demonstration. And I started laughing.
Wow, I don't remember.
So hard. And I'm just thinking I'm knocking on Avery Brooks' trailer.
Yeah.
And he opens up. He's like, yes, what is it? I said, yes, can you show me how to shake? And he's like, get out of my, I mean, I could just see him just kicking me in the head. And then
That's funny.
classic. Yeah.
Well, the other thing I remembered is watching this, I forgot how much Chakotay's character hated Tom Paris.
He hated you, like he wanted literally to kill you. I mean,
he literally wanted to kill
venom.
me. I forgot that, but we never really like followed that through or let that come back as like a, in a crunch. I wish we had, because there was some sparks there between Paris and Chakotay, and the pilot Paris taunted Chakotay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Those two hated each other. So. I that was a surprise memory, and I liked that. I liked that conflict and the messiness of that stuff.
I agree.
I forgot I'm just gonna jump around. I forgot I saved you money, dude. We were at the bar, and you were about to buy all those coins.
Low buy crystals.
The crystals, the crystals. That's what I meant. The little crystals. And I was like, dude, these are not real. They aren't worth anything. You were about to like open up your wallet and pay that man anything he asked for. So I saved your ass.
I was going to give him my unborn son.
You were.
Give him.
Yeah.
You saved the day.
Money.
You did. Okay, so back to the ship. So this is the first time we see Chakotay, the first time we see Tuvok, and the first time that we see Torres. Right, so they're the first series regulars that we get a glimpse of. And so when you see Tuvok, it's interesting because up until that point, I don't think we've ever seen an African American Vulcan or a black Vulcan. You haven't seen that, right?
Not as a lead. I mean, I didn't.
I don't think ever, to be honest. Okay, and I remember. People were asking me interviews about that, Robbie. Like there were reporters saying, "So what's up with the Tuvok character? Why is there a black Vulcan?" Yes, I got these questions.
Wow.
And I sat there and I made crap up. I said, "Well, the planet where Vulcans come from, it does have two suns. So because of the extra solar rays, tends to be more darker complected." I was making all this crap up. I had no clue.
I would buy it. Sure.
Yeah, you can buy that one. But the crazy thing with Tim is that if you look at Tuvok, he had to shave his hairline. Yeah. So he had this perfectly round, sort of like a bowl, modified bowl cut, basically. So he really didn't have the front part of his hair for the first 7 years, or the back half of his eyebrows were gone. Because you had to make that little Vulcan to go up. So he never got to see his end of his eyebrows until he was done 7 years later. Yeah. Can you imagine that? If they said, hey, your eyebrows, Robbie? Yeah, guess what? You're not going to see the end of them for 7 years.
You know what's funny about Tim, though? I remember as we got into the series, he had such a cool quality about him. I always thought that he seemed like he had been on Star Trek his entire career already. Like he knew the show, he knew the mythology really well. I always had a sense from Tim that he just had more of a history and a connection with Star Trek than our show. I always looked to him for like a lot of answers on the mythology of the show. I don't I don't know if he was bullshitting me or,
No, man, he knew it. I mean, he's definitely a nerd at heart for one, and secondly, he'd already guest starred on TNG and on DS9, and like you guest starred on the first duty of TNG. You had that one, episode, but Tim had already done a few.
That's what I thought. I thought
and, and Generations. I think he was in the feature. I mean, he was all over the place, right? Yeah. So he'd done a lot of it. And now that comes to the point of the topic of sideburns, which I want to talk about right now. It's very interesting because if you look at Tuvok, if you look at Chakotay, if you look at Tom Paris, and you look at Terry Kim, all four of these characters, we all had to have custom-made sideburns that were put on lace, and they tied in human hair for each little hair of our sideburn, and they pasted them on each side of our faces every single day at the beginning of the day. There were many times in the 7 years that maybe we were sweating or this or that, where a bit of the sideburn would be peeling off, or the whole thing would be flopping in the wind, where they'd have to say, cut, bring in the makeup department, fix the sideburns.
So you had lace sideburns, right? They were lace.
Yeah. Oh, yours weren't lace?
No, they would actually trim hair. They'd put some glue. They'd take the hair, mat it down, and then trim it, and then do some more glue. And so they would sort of build a sideburn on me. That's why a lot of times by the end of the day, I don't know why they did that. Maybe the lace just showed up more for my color hair or less, or I don't know. But the downside to them building it was if I got sweaty at the end of the day, as I sweated throughout the day, this beautiful, it was very inconsistent. The continuity was not good because I would have a really nice, beautiful sideburn at 8 a.m. But by midnight, when we worked 17 hours, I had sweated and the little hairs had fallen off. And so
that's crazy. Yeah. I almost think that's a budgetary thing. Like they were like, okay, because I remember those sideburns were very expensive to make. And I think that maybe they felt, my God, of all the actors on our show, the Asian guy can't grow them. The white guy can't grow them. The black guy can't grow them. The Latino guy can't grow them. The only person that can grow actual sideburns was the bald guy, Bob Picardo, the doctor. He could grow full mutton chops, which to me was hilarious. You probably got new shoes. I didn't get new shoes. I got used shoes day one, Robbie. The shoes that I put on my Starfleet.
I got used shoes.
Did you get used as well?
Yeah, they went through a bunch of shoes that were in the stock, and I got used shoes.
Oh my God.
Extra shoes or
I feel bad
or something.
I feel bad for you too then. I mean, that to me was just shocking. Me being in my early 20s, I took great offense to that. And I just thought, how dare you? And I remember examining the shoes the first day, and I found a name tag inside my shoes. Yeah. And the name tag was B. Spiner. So I realized that I was wearing Brent Spiner's hand-me-downs. Day one. Oh yeah. And I literally...
You got a big actor's hand-me-downs. I think mine were extras. I think it was literally from the background supply.
Okay, so just random background. Yeah. And instead of getting mad, I really should have just taken those shoes home and sold them on eBay. I don't know why I got so angry. There's two sides of the coin always. And you can choose to be zen about it and let it go, or you can get all reactionary. And at that point, I got all reactionary. I was pretty upset. And I remember I made a big stink about it, and they brought in Kate's Italian shoemaker that made her shoes. So Captain Janeway, so this guy comes into my trailer, and he looks at my feet, and he says, "Okay, I got it." I go, "You got what?" He goes, "I know your size." And I said, "Sir, would you like to trace the outline of my foot so you actually have an exact size of my foot?" He goes, No. Oh, here, it's good. I got it." And so this guy takes off. 3 weeks later, this beautiful pair of Craftsman boots were brought to my trailer that were just gorgeous, made by this old school Italian guy. I put them on. They are way too tight. And so, again, because he didn't measure them, right? So I ended up I talked to wardrobe. I talked to Mary Howard, and I said, "Look, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to Nordstrom. I used to work for Nordstrom men's shoes when I was in college. Nordstrom has the best selection. I'm going to Nordstrom. I will pick out a pair of 3/4 length boots. I will bring you the receipt, and you will reimburse me." And then Mary goes, "That's fine." Because at that point, we've gone through all this stuff.
Garrett, you just mentioned Nordstrom, who happen to be one of our sponsors. No, they're not.
Okay, we're gonna move on to so after you see the Maquis ship and they're being blasted by the displacement wave and they disappear,
Yes.
and that's when you see the opening credits for Voyager for the very first time. And I want your opinion, Robbie. What are your thoughts of the graphics, the music of Voyager's opening scene?
I think it's beautiful. I really do. I thought it was when we saw it in the screening room, the big theater, and on the big screen, I was blown away by all of the textures and the different, kind of photography that they used for the different types of space and the rocks, the meteors or whatever, and the clouds of color and all of that. I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was a perfect fit for our show because we were going to be in the Delta Quadrant and sort of, exploring very different kinds of unknown space. I just thought it was the right kind of opening title. I love the song. I thought it was beautiful.
And it was a full orchestra that did the music, not only
Star
for
Trek. Star Trek was one of the last shows that would have a full orchestral recording session.
Correct.
And I went
for every episode.
For every episode, for every piece of music that was in each episode was composed by a few different composers that worked on the show. But yeah, it was scored like an old movie. It was done old school. When I worked on the Orville, Seth MacFarlane's show. I directed first and second season on that. But when I was directing the first early episode, they were scoring the Orville with a full orchestra.
Nice.
And I talked to Seth about that, and he said, yeah, Fox wanted to not do that because it was so much cheaper.
Yeah.
And he insisted. In fact, I think he said, you know what? If you guys won't pay for it, I'll write the check and I'll pay for the orchestra because that's how important it is. And
Wow.
Of course, they're not going to take his money and make him pay for it. But he won that battle, and they got a full orchestra, and it was beautiful. It makes a difference. It really does make a difference.
It does. So you sat in on a few of those orchestral sessions. Is that correct? You saw
On
them?
Voyager, yeah, I did. I sat in on a few of them, and particularly the ones when I had directed an episode, I'd love to go over and listen to them.
I would see when they would break or they would call it a day, and I'd see this procession of musicians walking past our set they're all in black and with all their instruments. And I just remember the main thing I remember from that is just that, wow, we have a full orchestra, number one, and number two, wow, the cellist, whoever that woman is gorgeous. I remember that was something that I noticed in my early 20s and singleness. I was like, boy,
that's funny.
Maybe I should ask the cellist out on a date. Do you remember how visual effects would give us an actual copy of our nameplate? And depending on what you had in the background, some of it was cooler than others. But in the beginning, when we had Jennifer Lean, it was Jennifer Lean that had the blank space, which was just the stars and nothing else, no planets, no kind of gaseous anomalies. And then when Jennifer Lean left and was replaced by Jerry Ryan, Bob Picardo got that screen. Oh, sorry. It was Ethan Phillips that had it first. And then Bob Picardo got the screen that was just the stars alone. And I remember him complaining about that. He was not happy. He was like, and now my background is just the stars. And he was not happy. and I just realized from watching all these TNGs that every single actor, their name card is with just stars. Every time they show planets, they don't have an actor name on it. But so Patrick Stewart,
I don't know which is better, like without the distraction of rocks or planets or something.
Right.
Your name pops out more or less.
Yeah. The very first scene is of you with Janeway, right? So you and Janeway are now having a conversation. And my question was this Griffith Park? And I was right. It was Griffith Park, the zoo specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And as we were watching this and you were doing this whole scene, I'm watching the rewatch with Megan and also with Keely. And Keely, who is 11, and you've met Keely. After we watch part of the scene and we say, Megan says, that's Robbie. And she goes, that was Robbie? Literally, she's like, that was right. And then we go, yeah. She goes, are you sure? And we're like, yes, we're sure. She goes, no, that's Robbie. Like she literally for the next, 25 minutes kept saying, I can't believe that's Robbie. That's not Robbie. Like, because she knows she was, well,
Yeah,
she's never she's never seen you as
I think
yeah,
one of the things that I think about when I watched the pilot, when I came on the show, I knew that there was a connection to the Nick Locarno role that I had done on Next Gen. I knew that there had been some thought about, me having done that character, about maybe even making this character in Voyager Nick Locarno, perhaps, or something. There'd been, at least in my mind, I had a real connection to this. They want the same kind of guy that was on Next Gen, the same kind of character, or whatever. And my thought about Nick Locarno when I did that Next Gen episode was he was a pretty rotten guy. He was in his core, he was a bad guy. And he pretended to be nice. He pretended to be a good guy on Next Gen, but deep down, he was a pretty rotten guy.
But you did the right thing at the end, though.
At the end,
he did the right thing.
Yeah, he did come through in the end. But my point is, I think I amplified that in my mind, and so everything I did. I mean, I in looking at it after 25 years, I feel like I leaned in really hard to like he's the guy that everybody hates, so he's just going to be like, screw you. I got an attitude and, combative with everybody. And I think I amplified that in hindsight, probably a little too much.
Okay.
I think he could have been a bit more relaxed. And the only reason I say that is because I think Keeley knows me as a human being. And I don't have that sort of that's
that
just
edge.
That's not who I am.
Yeah,
like, if
that's
anything, right. I'm too much of a people pleaser, probably, if anything. Or
that's right. And also now you have facial hair and the glasses and so.
Yeah, I mean, I look different, but also there's something about that attitude that was so amplified. And I think in hindsight, I would have just had him relax a little more and not be so combative and not take it so
right.
I think he could have been I don't know, just a little more relaxed and have fun. I think where he ended up developing years later could have been there a little more in those early episodes.
I think personally, you became less like that as the time went on. But did you
actually
started
writing him less combative and less of a jerk? But also, I think I started looking for opportunities to, even in reactions to things, just to be a little more. Relaxed or empathetic to other people, or invested in, not so selfish or whatever. A lot of the negative qualities that I think I probably dialed up a little bit early on because I thought that's what they wanted. I thought that was what they were looking for.
Okay, and then what was funny while we're watching, for some reason, Megan, who loves the Broadway play Hamilton, started using your character as Alexander Hamilton, and she started to say yes. So she was like, how does a bastard pilot, son of a Starfleet admiral, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in an island prison? I mean, so she started making lyrics for Tom Paris.
Great idea.
So if anyone out there wants to make...
I had dreams and goals and aspirations. I was on Broadway, not in a musical, but I was on Broadway in a play, dramatic.
Yes.
But I did a lot of musicals. So if someone wants to turn Tom Paris's life into a rap musical, I'd be happy to go back and revive this character on the stage in a rap.
Yeah, or even just for, if a fan out there wants to substitute the lyrics in the Alexander Hamilton for Thomas Eugene Paris instead, whatever, that'd be super cool. If you guys tweet us that, and we could actually perform that as a little side bonus material.
That would be fun.
I'd like to see that, right?
Yeah.
One thing annoyed me about that scene with you talking with Janeway, that walk and talk. Janeway has her hands behind her back the entire time that you guys are walking down that hill. And she just looks like a pogo stick going ding, ding, ding. And for me, just watching that, I was like, as a director, I would have been like, okay, let's see it with your hands down by your side. I mean, to me, that, I don't know if that bothered you or if you noticed that. That's something I've always
looking at my goofy long arms swinging. And we were walking down a hill.
Yes.
It's pretty,
steep.
That was steep. But the way he shot it on that long lens, that telephoto lens, you can't really tell that it's a hill. And so the way that, when you're walking down a hill, your body sort of compensates for gravity going down, but you couldn't really see that. So it made both of us look a little bit like, we're kind of clomping, it almost looked like flatter land than it was. And so, I was too busy looking at my goofy walk to notice.
Okay. As we're watching it, Megan was like, did you notice that he's totally sweaty here on his chest, but his face is totally dry? Like, that's one thing that she saw in that scene that was a little like, hey, why is that doing? Why is it like that?
I remember that scene. They were spraying, when you do scenes where I was supposed to be doing manual labor. And so
yes,
I think in the first scene where I'm drilling or something, and I turned around, I noticed that they had put some glycerin, like sweat, in here.
Yes.
But yeah, my whole face was dry.
Completely.
And I find that to be not uncommon. I find it happens a lot in TV and film stuff where it's hard to maintain continuity for sweat to look real. They put a little like circle of sweat under your arm, and they put like a little sweat line right there, but then it doesn't seem to match. So or you'll see an actor playing basketball in a scene, and the sweat just looks so fake because it was the wardrobe department or somebody taking a spray bottle and spraying it to make it look ready. So I didn't notice it on that, but I've noticed that before. Yeah, in some episodes that our sweat or our that kind of thing can sometimes look a little manufactured, not natural.
Oh yeah, and I manufactured a lot of my own sweat on the topic of sweat.
You did.
I did.
I was probably number 2 sweater on the show, but
do you think so?
You were the
winner. You were number 2?
I think I was number 2 after.
Wow, I never would have said that about you.
Really?
No, because like with you, and I'm gonna jump forward to whatever episode it was. I don't know the name of it, but we were filming and it was your coverage and it was hot on the bridge or wherever we were. No, we weren't on the bridge. And so as the camera's on your right side of your face and I'm standing off camera and I'm watching you and it's hot and you're sweating, but you're only sweating on your left side of your face away from camera. And I remember when they yelled cut, I said, Robbie, you are so professional. You're amazing. Holy crap. The side of your face that's on camera, it's not sweating at all. It's so hot in here. You're just only allowing the sweat to come off of the left side of your face. So I thought that you didn't sweat that much. I, on the other hand,
professional actor.
Yeah, you did a good job. I sweat so much that I had a white salt sweat stain on my black Starfleet uniform all the time, to the point where they had to manufacture a different garment for me. So the underneath, we had that sort of like grayish blue, whatever, tank top. That was manufactured where they put in these huge pads underneath both of my underarms to collect all this sweat so that I wasn't sweating through the black. Yeah, I had that. I had a totally different setup. And then I talked to wardrobe. I said, I'm so sorry. And they said to me, you know what, Garrett? Every Star Trek series has a sweater. And in Voyager, you are the sweater. I said, really? I said, so what about TNG? Who's a sweater on that? LeVar Burton. I said, so they literally had a person like they knew from every series. And I've since found out that after Voyager, Enterprise, it was Phlox. So the character of the Dr. Phlox, played by John Billingsley, he was a sweater on that one. Yeah. So we had a lot of sweat going on. Yes, so Megan always said you were the most well-groomed prisoner that she'd ever seen.
Yes.
Your hair was perfect.
Okay? Perfect, right?
Yeah. And if you remember, Robbie, Carrie McCluggage was the president of Paramount Television Group at the time.
Yeah.
And one of Carrie McCluggage's one of the things that he would say to all showrunners is like, you know what, if you can't get the script right, if you can't get this right, just make sure one thing, the hair. Make sure the hair is right. That was one of his big things, right? So hair it was, and there you were with your
hair. I had perfect hair.
All right, so the next scene, we are on the whole reason why Janeway is there, because she needs you to help find the Maquis ship. Okay, she asks you to come help find it as an observer, and you tell her, how dare you, I'm the best pilot ever, and you should have me as a pilot. So now we have a scene where both you and Stoddy, the character of Stoddy, who is a Betazoid, are sitting in that shuttle, and you're heading over to you're basically flying towards Deep Space Nine, and you see Voyager kind of docked onto Deep Space Nine. And this is where your infamous, your Han Solo swashbuckling kind of comes into your dialogue, because you have that beautiful line, which is where you're kind of coming on to her, and she says to you, she goes, "Mr. Paris, do you always fly at women at warp speed?" And you say, "Only when they're in visual range." So it's like, you little stud muffin.
I didn't write it. I didn't write it.
I know, but that was very, that to me, was so quintessential beginning of Tom Paris being sort of the ladies' man, being the, that guy. But we learn that from that speech that Voyager has bio-neural circuitry. Okay. And so this is a new concept in Trek at the time, because now you're saying that the ship has basically living material. It's like it's alive in a sense. And I find that I think that we also then influenced the series Farscape. I don't know if you've watched any Farscape at all in your lifetime, but Farscape was produced by the Jim Henson, the Muppet Company, in 1999, and their ship, which is used in every episode, is alive. It's completely alive. So wow. I think that our show sort of took precedent, and I think other sci-fi writers or other sci-fi creators took some of our ideas and incorporated it into their shows. So that's just one point that I realized.
Yeah, it's funny. The show that I'm doing right now is called Resident Alien. Alan Tudyk is the star, and I'm producing that show and directing some episodes. But his spaceship, Alan Tudyk's spaceship that he comes and crashes into Earth with, and gets stuck on Earth, his spaceship is bioneural in a way. Like the whole concept of that ship is that it's connected to him. So even if he's not, it's kind of like some telepathic, biological, and almost a combination of like Minority Report, like virtual controls that he's able to control, and it's all connected to kind of his own internal biological, makeup. And so, yeah, I think that's interesting. I don't know what shows did it before, but yeah, that was very new for Star Trek.
We were groundbreakers.
Yeah,
most definitely. So the next scene we come upon Quark and Kim. I start this confrontation with Quark when I said, well, we were warned about the Ferengi at the Academy. And that sort of started the whole Quark and Kim altercation or whatever that was, which you end up saving the day and pulling me away, like you said earlier. And then we ended up...
it's funny, though, like what your comment, we were warned about the Ferengi at the Academy. I mean, sure, that's, I guess, offensive on some level. But he would have tried to scam you no matter what you said. You could.
That's true.
It's a beautiful, space station here at Deep Space Nine. You could have said something, anything. I think he would have tried to scam you and hustle you.
You're right about that. And it was a good scene. I was less nervous at that scene, obviously. Then after that, the pilot goes to the sickbay where we find the original Doctor. Do you remember that? We had the original Doctor played by Jeff McCarthy.
Yep.
That is the original Doctor who ends up dying later when we're hit by the phase, the displacement wave that pulls us to the Delta Quadrant. So we're in that scene, and this is the first time you glimpse on the clamshell bed of the sick bay is a crew member, and that crew member was John Tampoya, my Filipino stand-in. Okay, so John, do you remember John Tampoya? Yeah. Okay, so John Tampoya is on there, and as we're watching, Megan goes, "Is that you on the bed?" And I'm like, "No, it's me walking into the scene." But yes, it's John Tampoya, who looks like in a reclined prone position that it could be me. And one of the funny things is that for me that I just never could understand was, when they put him in a Starfleet uniform, they put him in the same color as mine. And it's like, why would you put the Asian extra in the same color as, give him the red or the green? Why the gold? Now people are going to be watching the scene. Oh, there's Harry again. Oh, Harry must have cloned himself, because certain people who think all Asians look alike, they're going to be like, there's Harry again and again and again. And in reality, it was John Tampoya over and over again. That scene was my first actual ADR was from that scene.
Oh, really?
Yes, because remember that doctor does not like Tom Paris. There was issue. You guys had
nobody liked me.
He hated you. I mean, he hated you probably more than Chakotay did, it seemed. And
He hated me, and
so did the first officer. He hated you too.
First officer hated me. They were talking to you in the mess hall about
later on,
whispering, and everybody was trying to convince you to not like me. But I saved money. I saved you money in Quark's Bar. So.
You did. So you were vindicated there. I do owe you. But I just wanted to say, because in order to break up the tension between you and Jeff McCarthy's character, the original Doctor, I said, I haven't paid my respects to the captain yet either. Now, when you listen to this, when you watch the pilot, there's a distinct difference in the tone of my voice in other parts of the episode and here, because again, this was my first time doing voiceover. And for those of you out there that don't realize this, but Voyager, specifically Voyager, and Star Trek, we do more ADR work than any other show on the planet, I think. I mean, like, we would have hours and hours and pages of voiceover that we would have to do in a studio after the fact. And this is my first big gig and my first time doing voiceover for ADR. I was so nervous. And you have to time it, because they give you these beeps before your line. So you're sitting there in a sound stage, you watch the actual episode, and then right before the line that you're supposed to redo, and you're redoing this mainly so they have a clear copy of it, basically. Is that right, Robbie? Is that the right way to say it?
Yeah, they're the reason it's called looping is because they used to put a clip of the film that had the lines that you were replacing, the additional dialogue or the replacement dialogue. They would literally loop that piece of film so that you get in a rhythm and you'd say, whatever the line is. What was the line that you looped?
I said, I haven't paid my respects to the captain yet either, or either.
Yeah, so it would be like, I haven't paid my respects to the captain yet either. Beep, beep, beep. I haven't paid my respects to the captain yet either. Beep, beep, beep. So they do it in a loop, and you do a few recordings, and then they would stick it in, and hopefully it would sync up. But they keep the same sort of the beeps and the flash. You'd see the kind of flat things on the screen. Beep, beep.
But the thing was, it was 3 beeps, and you went on the supposed 4th beat if there was a 4th beat. So it was like beep, 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 go. And so for me, I couldn't get the timing down. I was sweating in there. I was flipping out. We were doing just the first line of dialogue. Right. We spent probably 25 minutes on that. And I literally, honestly, Robbie, I almost thought, I can't do this. I'm gonna have to call up Berman and say, I gotta quit. I can't do this job. I cannot do the looping. And I was flipping out so much that I could not match the tone, the acting that I put in that day in the sick bay, the actual, the work that I did. So honestly, from just an objective observer who doesn't know me, doesn't know anything about me, or doesn't know anything about Voyager, if you're watching this first scene, it's going to come off as crappy acting. I think it's sort of like, wow, that's a really bad delivery of the line. And it's because I was so uncomfortable with doing voiceover.
But it's funny, I think looping, even for good actors, I always feel like it's so much better to have the real dialogue in there that you're doing.
Definitely.
Because even people that are good at looping and ADR work, you can feel the disconnect. It's very, very hard to get the sound and the sync with the lips and all of it. Yeah.
They don't teach you looping class, or they don't teach you these things that you need to learn in the real world as a professional actor that everyone has to do, but you never learn this when you're doing your stuff in college, right? And that continues into the next scene. We walk out in the hallway again. My lines are very kind of stilted and kind of really kind of abrupt. And again, the looping was another scene that I couldn't get the looping down very well. And then while we're watching that, Megan says, "Why does Robbie's V come lower than yours?" And this is something I never ever really noticed, but now I notice. If you look at your V on your uniform, it comes below the black line. It goes below. Mine stops at the black line. So you and Janeway, it goes below. Chakotay goes below. B'Elanna Torres goes below. But Tuvok and I don't understand that. I don't know what that what the history behind that is, what it means, or is it just a choice when you
could
join
just be a
Starfleet?
choice, it could just be Bob Blackman in the wardrobe department just making an aesthetic choice on what looks better on different people. You know what I mean?
Right. But I just think that's really funny. Like, as you join Starfleet, their question is low V or high V, and you're like, I'll take a low V, and then you get a low V, right? Like for the rest of your life as a Starfleet officer.
Yeah.
Take a break now, or should we
take a break? I think for those of you watching and listening, this pilot is longer than I remembered. It's not a regular episode. It's an hour and a half long. We're going to really dive in deep to this one. So let's take a break.
And we'll see you soon for part 2 of our recap of Caretaker.